Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation are very specific in their words following the fuel scarcity in the FCT. Its Group General Manager, Public Affairs Division, says they have no plans to increase the ex-depot price of petrol within the next month. They have enough product to keep the country wet for the next 40 days. Specific. Well, the queues are back in Abuja and its environs. Again, we bear the brunt of a crisis we did not cause and do not understand. We'll get to the details shortly, but first, let's look at the major happenings this week in the nation's capital.
Nigeria has taken delivery of 3,924,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines. The vaccines arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, and was received by top government officials, led by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa.
They are very effective and efficacious, and that I would urge at the time of vaccination and deployment, if you fall into the category that will be vaccinated, make yourself available. It will do you no harm. Nobody is intending to kill anybody. This is for the good and well-being of Nigeria.
Meanwhile, a medical doctor, Ngong Cyprian, has become the first person to receive the COVID-19 vaccine in Nigeria. Dr. Cyprian took the jab at the flag-off of the COVID-19 vaccination exercise in Nigeria at the National Hospital in Abuja. He was administered the vaccine by the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaibu.
Today, we're going to be administering the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine to a frontline health worker. By doing this, we're symbolizing what we've been saying for the last few weeks from the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, that we're going to be prioritizing those who in the last 1 year have sacrificed on behalf of all Nigerians to make sure that those of us who contracted the disease are treated in a humane way, are treated in a way that really replicates the best traditions when it comes to the quality of medical practice.
In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo have received the COVID-19 vaccine. Members of the Federal Executive Council, as well as federal lawmakers, are expected to receive the vaccine on Monday, March the 8th, 2021. President Muhammadu Buhari is directing the Nigeria Immigration Service to tighten security around the nation's borders. The president gave the charge at the virtual commissioning of the technology and data building of the Nigerian Immigration Service in the nation's capital.
I urge you to actively collaborate with international security organizations like the Interpol in safeguarding our borders. Remember that a safe border is a prerequisite for a safe nation.
President Muhammadu Buhari has decorated the new service chiefs. The new service chiefs decorated are the Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Lucky Irabo, who is decorated as a general, Chief of Army Staff, Major General Ibrahim Atahiru, who is decorated with the rank of a Lieutenant General, the Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Awal Gambo, decorated as Vice Admiral, while the Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Oladayo Amao, decorated with the rank of Air Marshal.
I have taken the responsibility as Commander-in-Chief for you to go out into the field and secure the country. I have accepted responsibility for your actions in the field. It's up to you to identify your competent officers, irrespective of seniority and paper qualification, and deploy them to make sure that we secure this country. We have got a few weeks to do that because by the rainy season, we expect people to develop confidence and go back to the land so that we don't get in trouble by being away from the field and therefore unable to produce enough food for the nation.
Earlier, the Senate had confirmed the nomination of the service chiefs appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari. The Senate President, Senator Ahmed Lawan, charged them to take the fight to the bandits and insurgents in a renewed bid to ensure security of lives and properties across the country.
let me take this opportunity to thank the former service chiefs for doing their best, and also advise the new service chiefs, the Chief of Defense Staff, and the new service chiefs that Nigerians expect so much from them. We are in a very serious situation. The security situation must be improved, and the bulk is now going to stop on their tables as far as operations are concerned. In a situation where bandits will come to a school, take over 300 students on motorcycles and disappear into the thin air without any trace, it's not acceptable. Something has to give, because apparently this is becoming an industry. Some people are benefiting from this.
Meanwhile, the president has declared Zamfara State a no-fly zone and placed a ban on all mining activities in the state to curb the rising insecurity in the area. The National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Monguno, made the disclosure to State House correspondents after a 5-hour meeting of the National Security Council, which was presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House in Abuja.
His Excellency the President has approved, based on our recommendation, the imposition and enforcement of a ban on all mining activities in Zamfara State with immediate effect until further notice. He has directed the Honorable Minister of Defense and the National Security Advisor to deploy massive military and intelligence assets to restore normalcy to that part of the country. He has also approved that Zamfara State be declared a no-fly zone with immediate effect.
Members of the Amalgamated Union of Foodstuff and Cattle Dealers in Nigeria finally suspend their one-week-old strike after a conciliation meeting with the governor of Kogi State, Alhaji Yahaya Bello. The traders listed multiple taxation, extortion of their members by security officials and thugs, as well as the losses they incurred during the NSAS protest and the recent Shasha market crisis as the reason for the strike.
The association demanded that there are his members that were killed. They are requiring that compensation be paid. The harassment by law enforcement agencies on our federal highways be stopped. The extortion by all touts along the federal highways, especially from northeast or from the north to south, south, and southeast particularly, be stopped.
The Minister of Environment, Mohammed Mahmood, says 15 carcinogenic sites have been cleaned up in Ogoni land in Rivers State. The cleanup was flagged off 5 years ago. Speaking at the end of the meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari, Mr. Mahmood admits that there are delays owing to the pandemic and land disputes in some communities, which persistently pose serious challenges.
Welcome back. Let's get right into it. Petrol dealers say the queues in the FCT are caused by their inability to restock the product, and they cannot restock because they're finding it hard to pay for the product using the new pipeline product marketing company payment platform. So simply put, Nigeria's law says marketers should buy at 148 naira and sell between 160 and 163 naira per litre. Being unable to access the product due to broadband challenges is pressuring them to buy from third and fourth parties at a higher price. Now, not only is this against the law, but the marketers are running the risk of buying at a higher price, let's say 162 to 164 naira, and then have to sell at the lower price approved by the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency. Now, the NNPC on its part is fine with the payment platform. It's called the Customer Express, and it was introduced in 2020 to guarantee the ease of doing business and curb sharp practices. While all this is still being discussed, residents of Abuja and its environs have to deal with fuel scarcity and the long queues that follow. Watch this.
They are back. long queues at petrol stations dotting the streets of the nation's capital is indicative of a fuel scarcity. The queues, which started a week ago, have seen motorists spend long hours waiting to get petroleum products. Some stations are selling below their full capacity, while the product is still sold between 162 and 166 naira per litre at the stations that have the product. At some of the stations, COVID-19 protocols are disregarded as motorists try to get the product.
We'll be here for 4, 5, or 6 hours without fuel, and we're a nation that may be the 4th largest world producer of crude oil without without fuel in our country, and it's extremely very sad, very, very sad indeed.
The other fuel station before we left, they are selling the fuel 178 naira per liter. Now some people came there and closed the fuel station. We now left there and came to this fuel station in NNPC at Sokoro. Now actually here they are working well, but the queue is much.
Black market appears to be a thriving trade as young men make brisk business from those who are not prepared to join the long queue. Nevertheless, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation says it has enough stock to keep the nation wet for over 40 days. A statement issued by the Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division of the corporation, Dr. Kenny Obateru, states, contrary to speculations of imminent increase in the price of premium motor spirit petrol in the country, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has ruled out any increment in the ex-depot price of petrol in March of 2021. NNPC also cautioned petroleum product marketers not to engage in arbitrary price increase or hoarding of petrol in order not to create artificial scarcity and unnecessary hardship for Nigerians. However, the queues did not abate despite the assurances from the state-owned oil company. For days, motorists spend long hours just to get the product, and frustrations continue.
It's much better today than yesterday. The queue yesterday was something else, and then the whole chaos. It was a madhouse.
Well, it's a very important commodity. It's not something that should be seized at any point in time. I think all things should be put in check.
At hand to enforce compliance to standards by marketers is a team from the Department of Petroleum Resources. The team inspects the facilities at petrol stations to counter any hoarding of the product.
I'm advising the marketers to please stop hoarding, and they should stop selling stop selling to the black marketers. We are all out for them, and this exercise will continue till further notice, so they are warned.
While the DPR seems to be making progress in the enforcement of its regulations, perhaps the quickest way out of the situation could be ensure that the refineries are working optimally and ensure increased supply of the product.
My guest on the program is Mr. Olabode Showumi, an oil and gas expert. He talks to me this week about the deregulation of the petroleum downstream sector and why it is not working as it should, the very secretive method of determining the price of Nigeria's fuel, and why Nigeria's refineries are still not working. Mr. Showumi, welcome to Dateline.
Thank you.
What do you make of this whole situation, this fuel queues? The way it has happened over the years in Nigeria, even though the NNPC comes out right now and they're saying, no, there's no plan, but you see they were specific. They said there's no plan to increase the price of petrol in the next 1 month. They were very specific about the timeline. But over the years, we'll see what happens after 1 month. Over the years, what we've been seeing is there will be a rumor that they're about to increase the price of petrol. Then there will be fuel scarcity. Then we will die under the weight of this fuel scarcity for weeks, until a point when Nigerians will go, what do we need to get the product? And then they would say, well, you know, there's some algorithm that we're using to measure this, and now, you know, the price has to go up. And by then we'll be fed up with staying in fuel queues and not having electricity because we don't have fuel for our generators, and then the price will go up and we move on with our lives, grumbling, but moving on. This has been, we've seen this before. What do you make of the situation? Is this what is going to happen?
It's possible. But I think more than even that actually happening, it's about ending the vicious circle, which is probably more important. And it speaks to the fact that there is actually a very opaque system that determines fuel price within the downstream sector. So it's not just petrol, it's also diesel, it's also kerosene. It's even probably gas, the LPG that you use. What has happened is that there is supposed to be some kind of magical algorithm that determines these prices, which is possible, but it's not the algorithm that matters. It's the fact that the process that determines those prices must be such that everybody can understand. There is a very complex algorithm and charts and all that makes up your computer. But you do not have to be a computer scientist to use your computer. You understand? It has to be simplified in a way that the user, the end user, who could be a mechanic, who could be a hairdresser, who could be an illiterate, can use it. That's what makes a system, what makes a technology functional. Now, what has happened is that there are certain key inputs that determine the final price of the fuel that we have. We know it's made from crude oil. So there's the price of crude oil, which is international. Then maybe we need to transport it to Holland or Venezuela or somewhere where it is refined. So there's a transportation cost involved, which is also international price. Then they need to refine it. Cost of refining is basically international as well. It's a standard price. Then they need to transport it back, which is also an international price. And then it lands on our feet, on our doorsteps. But between the depot and getting it to us, we have to now have the supply chain of the petrol tankers, which is a price that is entirely controlled by us, independent of the dollar. So within all these key factors, manipulation, adjustment of those things is what determines the prices. So if these factors are not made transparent to the Nigerian person, there is a likelihood that we will believe that what they're telling us is not necessarily correct. And the fact is, because they're not making these things available, so next week they will tell us there's no more subsidy. 2 weeks after that, subsidy has returned. 3 weeks after that, there's increase. So you begin to wonder what's really happening. So the first thing is that there must be a critical mass of Nigerians, whether it is the NGO world, whether it is the man on the street, whether it is the media, that must put this pressure on the government arm that is responsible for this pricing to make it public. It is based on that you and I can understand if there's a genuine price for increase. Because even when the prices of crude oil falls, we don't necessarily have a corresponding fall in prices. So what is happening?
Nigerians have heard this deregulation. And the deregulation was supposed to address these queues, these fuel queues. Just so people can understand it again, what is deregulation and why isn't it working in our bid to fight these fuel queues that we see almost every year?
You know, deregulation is a key component of the free market enterprise, which is capitalism. Capitalism is the bedrock of democracy because, the world has tried all kinds of systems. We've tried communism, we've tried socialism, they've tried theocracy, and they found that over time, over the centuries, that democracy does appear to be the best in terms of human systems, in terms of governance. Having said that, when you cannot just leave the masses to the raw forces of demand and supply. And so there must be something like a regulator that will protect the man on the street from the capitalist greed. And that's where regulation comes in. However, there is a tendency for overregulation, which can hinder the creativity of the entrepreneur and all that. So in between all of that, in terms of changing things to ensure that there is a proper market for engagement of people, is where you come up with the principles of the regulation, which basically means that you are avoiding an over-regulated environment. So you deregulate. So you reduce regulation bottlenecks. Now, the regulation bottlenecks here are the ones that allow for a monopoly, because the secret to all of these things is freedom of buying and selling. If it were a free market enterprise, a properly free market where there is demand and supply, it is the price at which people buy that they sell. When they're going to increase fish prices in the market, nobody needs to know. You just get to the market and you see that this is the thing, and then you check if there are other sources and all that. But for petrol, for most of what it is, it's not exactly like that, because there's just one main source of import, which is the NNPC. So if you are the only one, that means effectively there isn't really competition. And if you are bringing a product and you are increasing it for everybody, especially when you don't have competition. People want to know, and people have a right to know whether what you are doing is just capitalist greed, taking advantage of the regulation and governance, rather than allowing the proper forces of demand and supply. So those are where the issues are. The issue is that, are we actually allowing the forces of demand and supply to operate as they should in the market? And I think the answer to that is no.
You know, with the nation's refineries not working, can we ever find a way to resolve this problem of, you know, pricing of petroleum products? You know, if we've been saying the same thing for years and nothing is being done, the refineries are still not working, and we still don't understand how the pricing works, is there going to be a solution at any point?
I think when we talk about the refineries, let me first come to why they say that refineries can be the solution of this. We spend a lot of our forex on importing fuel. In fact, the biggest consumers of our forex is not round tripping, it's not those who are schooling in education, I mean, who have their kids abroad, it's importation of fuel. That's the biggest consumer of oil, and that's the biggest determinant of the what you call inflation prices and all of that. So it is not magical for you to know that if you take all that forex away from trading of fuel, which we have the crude oil, and bring it into the economy receives some life. So it's just that. But however, there are people who benefit from the inefficiencies and inadequacies of the system. And it is possible that those people have formed some kind of a clique which have determined that the refineries should not work. These are just theories and all that. It's possible.
Theories that you apparently believe in?
Not necessarily. I'm just saying that those are theories that people say. So, and those things need to be investigated, because sometimes it's easy to just to come up with assumptions, but those are theories and they have some logic to it. So, having said that, the next line will be, how do you actually get refineries and get refineries to work? So the Dangote agenda and the Dangote system is basically to put a private sector drive into the system for which government has failed. And that's why Dangote is coming in. But what should be is that it shouldn't only be Dangote. There should be other options so that it is not a monopoly.
So thank you so much for being with us on Dateline.
Thank you.
I haven't built up the courage to join the fuel queues yet. It's so distressing. So I basically don't go anywhere unless it's extremely necessary. But for many people, you have to be on the road every day. So tell us what you had to go through to buy petrol using the social media handles on your screen. You can also let us know if you think this scarcity will ultimately lead to a rise in the price of petrol, as we've seen in the past. That's this week's episode of Dateline Abuja. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Magwa. See you next time.